want to see it both for others and for myself. So until I had it really in my face about 10 years ago, finally, and had to kind of see that more clearly, I was in denial about it in both the way it affected me and my goals and other women and their goals.
Janet made a thoughtful observation in the 3% talk that you gave about the changes that happened after becoming a mom, that you stopped treating your job as a kid because you now had a real child to care for. And it also opened up back to the we versus me, that it opened up empathy and patience. So what are some of the other areas that you've grown, and how those gender-specific areas possibly add a lot more value?
It's such a, again, as Nancy said, we gave this talk last night, and this came up then as well. And there was a woman in the audience who was talking about the fact that most of the women in leadership roles that she has known have been kind of serious and humorless and a bit brittle, and what I would say is kind of a stereotype of a certain type of female leader that I believe was the kind of woman who got those, fancy jobs in the 80s, say, because they modeled themselves on the way men do it. And
Right.
That was the only way for women to succeed, particularly at the time. And how much she wanted to see that change. And I do believe that it's changing, and things like the 3% conference have a huge amount to do with that. Our own experience, mine as you described, was that I was deeply in love with my job as a young woman, and before I had a child, and I had a child fairly young, so I hadn't been working that long when I had him, and I really was attached to the work, and oh my God, my heart was broken. Every ad that went in the garbage can, I felt like I just went home crying every single day.
Lost your baby.
Completely. And then I had a baby. Oh yeah, that was a good boost of perspective. And and it gave me some distance. Like, it truly gave me perspective on the job. And having that little bit of detachment made me better at my job. It made me more efficient with my time. It made my work less of a social life for me, but it made me more efficient. It made me kinder, I think. It made me more flexible, more open, more generous with other people. And Nancy, when she had a child some years later, she found very similar things happened for her. And our observation of all of the women who worked for us was that everyone got better after they had kids. And there's this horrible penalty that women pay for having children, because in the corporate world, men are rewarded for kids. They're suddenly seen as these like solid citizens who won't leave. You can trust them to stay, and therefore they're worth promoting, whereas women are seen as suddenly a huge flight risk once they have children, and they're held back. And that makes women not want to have kids, and hide, even to this day where it's illegal. We know women who are in their early 30s and married and get asked by interviewers when they go for jobs if they're, planning to have kids anytime soon. And their response to it is just to take off their wedding rings.
Yeah,
when they
couple
go
women
into
told us
interviews,
that.
which is sad and unfortunate, because what's not respected is the skills that women uniquely bring. And I'm not saying no guy has these things, but there are things that are kind of innate to women that have not necessarily been considered valuable in the work world, and are maybe starting to be. Which is that women maybe think a little harder before they act. And that, which had in the past been seen as a weakness, is the thing that has created companies that had greater success and stability through the financial crash in 2008, for example. They are more fundamentally empathetic and want to know people a little bit better and hear more about their lives. So they gain a lot of loyalty that way. They're less likely to sack people in times of trouble and figure out how to they can live with a little less profit for a period of time in order to make the long term to have the long-term benefit of not having to start over when things get better, because it actually costs more to rehire and retrain than it does to keep people on staff and maybe earn a little less money through a bad time. So women's innate qualities are starting to become valuable in the world. There's this great book called The Athena Doctrine, which did a global study of people around the world, 64,000 people from every walk of life in every imaginable country, and all the genders. And all the genders. There's a sliding scale of genders now.
Multiples.
Exactly. And they broke the group in half, and they gave them 125 human traits to look at. And one of the groups was asked to designate the traits as either male or female, and the other group was asked to choose what they believed were the most desirable qualities of leadership. And of the top 15 or so qualities of leaders, 12 of them were female qualities. And this was coming from everywhere on the planet. The things that women have to offer are really important in a world that's kind of, being dehumanized day by day, I would say.
So Janet's been talking broadly about female qualities, and I think that when you become a mother, just going back to your original observation or question around what's, why does that work? I do feel like there's an enhancement, there's a deepening of these innately female qualities that just gets brought to the workplace in a way that just benefits everybody so much. Definitely, I found I had so much more empathy. I'm a fairly self-absorbed person, or a very self-absorbed person, if you will, and that had a profound impact on me to become a parent in a way that I'm guessing it is part of an evolutionary process or biology, if you will. And it had a big impact on me as a mentor, or having greater interest in mentoring, greater interest in how all those around me were doing that just wasn't there before. So it is fascinating what happens once you have that big life change. It's funny, we had a president of Ogilvy years ago who said to us, a great guy named David Rutherford, and he said, "I'll never understand why women aren't given a medal when they have a child and come back to work. And
I agree.
Or even better, and instead they're penalized. The system still penalizes them."
Yeah, I agree. I heard a number of years ago that if childbirth happened on a rotating basis between genders, that there would only be one child, because a guy couldn't do it. So I've respected that. I want to jump back and throw two other books that came to mind as you were talking earlier about this, the stability, and it either is in one of these two books or both. The figures that are given of how much more stable a company is financially when women are in leadership. And I can't remember, it was either Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last, or Chip and Dan Heath's book, I think decisive. If I don't have them in front of me, but both are great leadership books on leadership and stability of companies, and again talk about the value that women bring in terms of stability of people and retention of great talent, as well as the financial stability they have as well. So anyway, just popped in my mind as you were talking about those points.
Yeah, Decisive is on my list of what to read next. I've heard rave reviews, so now you've just pushed me over the edge.
Yeah,
I think I have to bump it up, past Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, both of those books. Every book that the Heath brothers have written have been outstanding. So yeah, I'm a big fan of their writing. And again, both the Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and then his most recently, Leaders Eat Last, have had at least a profound impact on my thinking about leadership and our responsibilities in those areas. There's a quote that you use by Dr. Elaine Shin, that the more successful the woman, the worse she looks after herself. And as you were talking about the benefits that women bring to the workforce, it seems that also, from what I understand, that with all of the maternal instincts of taking care of the staff and the people and the children, that women often don't take care of their own doctor's appointments and some of the things they need to. What are your observations in terms of, I guess on a broader scale, the toll that poor health maintenance can take on the creative process and again, the life and enjoyment of the work?
Yes, it's a terrible truth that that we learn. We had to kind of learn it in researching for the book, that it's actually some version of proven that women that are very senior, particularly, are putting their health too far down the list, and we did see it around us, and we are guilty of it ourselves as well. That the woman will work herself to death practically, and put just about everything else ahead of herself, including her health. It's not a sustainable game plan, right? If you're going to literally get sick, no good can come from this. And I think there's a need for more widely understood facts around how critical it is to look after yourself, and I'd say emotionally as well as physically, it all goes together. We had to literally coach some women on taking better care of themselves, and early on in swim, I ended up talking to a woman who described a scenario where I was concerned that she was going to just have a nervous breakdown any minute because she was not giving herself the medical attention or the emotional taking steps to deal with emotional trauma that she'd had. So yeah, who knew that the men are generally, now we understand that they will, you book the doctor's appointment, you're going to go. The woman's going to cancel it at the drop of a hat and see her own well-being as just not as important as everything else. It's got to change.
So, but to move away from women as leaders and into the creative process specifically, and creative specifically, male and female, I think that the creatives come from the tradition of, a hard-lived life is a creative life, the Hemingway-esque, let's drink and smoke and never sleep and live rough and raucously. And we people have been the inheritors of that view, advertising having been may still be quite a party business. So I do think that there has been a lot of that kind of behavior and probably a lot of health fallout as a result of that. But